Altruism, the selfless, continuous act of aiding others, independently from the prospect of personal benefit. It's the philosophy of bearing concern for others, regardless of whether you stand to gain or lose anything simply by caring. It's a benevolent-sounding word to describe the benevolent acts of benevolent-sounding people. But that's the thing with words. They only ever take you so far. Who's to say what constitutes the criteria of a definition? That appears to be a matter of perspective. Is a word defined by its concrete definition, or is it the interpretation and further application that truly matter? And what happens when such a well-meaning word is commandeered by a malevolent cult? Join me today as we dive down the rabbit hole of the altruists.
Recent disappearance of several hikers in the hills of western Blaine County. A local sheriff's deputy spoke with us.
We are really confused.
Our opening encounter with the altruists occurs while playing as either Michael or Franklin. For should we head to this junction in Great Chaparral, we'll happen upon a woman being attacked by two older men wearing an almost concerningly lacking amount of clothing.
Youth is wasted on you. We will make you pure.
Don't touch me!
They're a violent sort, so naturally we are forced to kill them.
Oh, thank God. That was so awful. Did you hear what they were saying to me? Would you give me a ride home? I don't want to walk back on my own.
Yeah, sure, come on. We don't want you to run into any more crazed senior citizens.
At first this seems an isolated encounter, a couple of crazy older dudes attacking somebody, ranting about youth being wasted on her. At this stage, there's truly no indicator that this might be a part of something much bigger than simply one event. But it would seem these less than gentlemen have something of a vendetta against the young, and now we must drop this woman home and hope she yields more information.
Thank you. I'm staying just off Sonora Road by the Redwood Lights track.
So what the hell was that? Who were those guys?
I've no idea. I was just talking to a friend on my cell phone when I heard them behind me, yelling about the Industrial Revolution and the internet. At first I thought, oh, a couple of senile old-timers must have wandered out of the nursing home. So I'm like, did you get lost? Is there anyone I can call? Then they start really shouting at me how I'm dead wood, that I've failed as a generation. And next thing you know, they've got me pinned down on the ground. Terrifying. It was so disgusting. They stink like spoiled ham, crispy hands all over me, ranting about how technology is evil.
Except they were in a car.
Exactly. I'm thinking maybe they're like those weird religious folks who live out east that you see on MeTV, who publicly reject modern life but secretly drive to the farmer's market in a pickup and Era sneakers.
Rejecting television by being on television.
Right. But then they start going on about a manifesto, wanting to drink my blood, and I realize that this is something way more sinister. Some kind of freaky baby boomer cult. So weird. They kept saying that youth is wasted on me, that I've ruined society.
Which is interesting, considering they're the worst generation in the history of the world.
I know, right? The generation before them survived the Great Depression, fought the Second World War, and built America to greatness. Then they stepped in and fucked it all up for everybody.
So add to the rantings, we have technology and the internet, but the lady gives us the sinister suggestion that there might be an entire cult of these baby boomers. And if these two were hostile, we can only imagine the rest probably are too. And since cults aren't known for hosting a range of opinions across their members, it would appear these violent, barely clothed, middle-aged men view younger generations as having failed society. We come away from this encounter with a feeling that there is indeed more to this story. However, to properly find out where that's going, we'll need to switch things up and play as everyone's favourite nutcase, Trevor Phillips. For following completing the main story mission Nervous Ron, we will receive the following email. It's from Big Bad Ron at ifind.info and is titled Camp Culture. It reads, Hey Trevor, I just met these altruist cult guys. They got a camp up in the mountains somewhere and will give you cash if you bring them any lost souls who need to be saved. Sounds like easy money. They said they just want to have them for dinner. Wrong. Now at this point there's no way of telling that the altruist cult guys and the guys we just encountered are one and the same, but they do have a website and it is encrypted in Morse code. More on that in a moment, but for the time being, Cult Stoppers also has a page dedicated to our new friends. Here's what Cult Stoppers has to say. Apart from what appears to be some kind of encrypted manifesto, we don't have any first-hand information on this group. However, there are enough conspiracy theories circulating about people going missing in the San Andreas countryside for them to warrant a place on the Cult Stoppers list. We love conspiracy theories. When we first heard the stories of a remote rural hideout, daylight curfews, anti-technology vitriol and human sacrifice, we thought they might have been talking about our old cult. We remembered that they all skinned themselves alive and jumped into a vat of burning acid 2 years ago in what we can only imagine was the final act of glorious martyrdom we'd been promised for so long. We'd also assumed that the Altruists was an ironic name, until we heard that all its members are elderly and from a generation that predated irony and personal responsibility. We're told they're extremely secretive, extremely well armed, and extremely naked, and an old, armed nudist is never a good thing. Especially when they're rumoured to be on some kind of ageist jihad against the under 40s at the bequest of an alien called Lord Zaffo who is coming to reclaim the Earth. Or maybe they're just senile. If you have any intel on this cult, please contact us immediately. We can't find any former members who have dropped out, which is really worrying. We hear talking of a master, of people disappearing, and talk of this being the baby boomers' last boom, but we don't have much to go on. And sure enough, the idea of people going missing is corroborated by a news article that's available upon completing the main story mission Nervous Run, that is titled "Several Hitchhikers Have Gone Missing in Blaine County, Police Confused," and reads as follows. "We're confused," said a police spokesperson yesterday. At the same time, he admitted that he didn't have answers or even really too many questions. Just a lot of questions about questions, and those questions were themselves probably not really questions at all. Over the past 12 months, several hitchhikers and hikers have gone missing while walking in the western hills and mountains of Blaine County. Police are baffled as to why. Of the 7 people who are missing, no trace has been found of any of them. 3 were drifters, but 4 people were out hiking in the area. People don't normally just disappear into thin air, and that's why we are confused. It's a crime without a victim, without a suspect, and without a crime at the moment. We don't know what to say. When we do, we'll say it. Based on the fact the Altruists want Trevor to bring them lost souls for dinner, I think we can assume there's no body to be found. And considering those 2 old men we encountered earlier who fit the bill of these Altruists according to Cult Stoppers wanted to drink this young woman's blood, it would seem we are dealing with a cannibalistic cult. Now let's turn our mind to their encrypted manifesto. Fortunately, it's only in Morse code, and Morse code is incredibly easy to decipher if not ever so slightly tedious, and that's because its purpose is not really to be secretive, although clearly nobody told the Altruists that. And so all it truly needs is translation, something that has been done many times. So with that in mind, here's what their Morse code manifesto has to say. The Industrial Revolution has been a disaster to the stability of the human race. Almost all would agree that continued focus on the superiority of the sub-40 younger generation will result in the catastrophic and tragic end to our civilization. Man is a nocturnal animal by nature. Those who exist in the industrial, technological society, bathing in sunlight and electronics, suffer from psychological problems. Hypervitaminosis D causes abnormally high concentrations of calcium, which can cause harm to the heart, kidneys and bones. Toxic concentrations are a direct result of exposure to the sun. Crowding causes stress and aggression. Primitive societies, ones where clothes and tools of the Industrial Revolution were not needed, provided a stable framework for the function of society. One cannot complain about the decay of traditional values yet embrace technology. A man, as an individual, working with an autonomous group of individuals, all of whom are naked in spirit and in the cloth, remains healthy to himself and others. Sub-40s only exist as subsistence to the altruistic man and gains life from consuming them. ban clothes, ban lies, ban deceit, eat of the flesh, drink of the blood, we shall be free once more, because we know altruism, the greatest good for the greatest generation. We shall boom again. Well, this manifesto is quite the insight into the Altruists. As we've already learned, they appear to have a vendetta against sub-40s, along with another subtle hint towards cannibalism. They have some peculiar belief that younger generations are destroying society, and bear sentiments against, well, clothes for one, but also technology, which is really strange when they maintain a website. Not only that, they use Morse code, and also, as viewed in our first encounter, drive cars. However, it is their belief that primitive societies were more stable. It appears they basically yearn for times long past to an extreme, albeit with added cannibalism and less clothes. And if their beliefs are put into practice, they're the nocturnal sort, although I don't think this translates to the game awfully well. Ultimately, they claim to believe to be working in service of the greater good, at least for their generation, which they believe to be the greatest, and that would appear to, at least with respect to them, be where the word altruist comes from. They serve each other and their cause in what appears to be a fight against the rapidly changing world around them. However, it remains unclear as to what it is exactly they're striving for. Are they attempting to revert to a primitive culture, one that existed long before the Industrial Revolution? After all, judging by their own philosophy, they're already hypocrites. Or is it just fancy wordplay to justify their actions? Furthermore, for a group of reclusive cultists, they do seem awfully keen to broadcast their ideology. Firstly, of course, through their website, and though in Morse code is not challenging to decipher, and also at the rebel radio station in the Grand Sonora Desert, for should we come here at night and stand nearby to the radio mast, at about 3 AM in game time, we'll be able to hear the faint but unmistakable sound of Morse code. This transmission, when painstakingly translated, apparently says, ban clothes, ban lies, ban youth, ban deceit, eat of the flesh, drink of the blood, we shall be free once more because we know altruism, the greatest good for the greatest generation. We shall boom again. Now, completely off topic, I can't be the only one that finds something delightfully unsettling about the faint, high-pitched sound of Morse code. But the question we have to address here is, who are the altruists communicating with? Is it a recruitment drive trained at the older generation? How do they even go about recruiting? Or is it more insular than even that? Either way, who are these dits and dars for? Could they be utilizing radio communications to log their faith with some higher power? Is it a message to all open to hearing it, provided of course they were born between the years of 1946 and 1964, during the post-Second World War demographic phenomenon known as the baby boom? Or is it simply a reminder that the altruists are out there, and worryingly they like consuming flesh and drinking blood? Which brings us back to Ron's encounter with the altruists, with them saying that they'll pay for Trevor to deliver lost souls to them. At first it seems rather unclear how we're to go about such a task, but of course with time and an ill-advised respray of Trevor's truck, seriously, what was I thinking, the means through which we acquire said lost souls becomes rather apparent. In Grand Theft Auto 5 there are many encounters in which we find ourselves giving characters a lift, typically as one-off scenarios, with individuals asking us to drop them off places, following us aiding them. Well, the game tells us rather than taking them to their desired destination, we can instead deliver these random event passengers to the altruist cult, at their rural hideout in the Chiliad Mountain State Wilderness, in the dominating shadow of the ever-mysterious Mount Chiliad. All that needs doing is you ignore the yellow mission marker and instead place a custom marker for the altruist cult symbol that will appear on your map when you're in the middle of one of these encounters, and then just head towards it. The conversation, all the way over, does not change, so it isn't typically of huge bearing to the topic of today's video. However, as you get increasingly closer to the Altruist camp, your unsuspecting victim may express that they don't recognise where you've taken them, and Trevor will of course quickly respond.
I always take this route, less traffic. I know these streets like the back of my hand.
Upon our arrival at the Altruist camp, the following cutscene will play.
Hail, fella! What do you got? What do you got?
I heard you're interested in taking care of some lost travelers, for a price.
And so it is. So it is. Leave the body, take the gold. Come on! Move! Move!
And so, our hitchhiking friend, whomever that might be, is taken into the Altruist camp, presumably never to be seen again. And for our troubles, we receive $1,000, which isn't bad as far as comfort goes when you're complicit in human sacrifice, at least not when you're Trevor. But with that, we now know where the Altruists hang their... they don't wear any clothes really. Cocks? And so it's a location worth bookmarking for later, but inspecting the place, even in passing, if it wasn't already, it should now be abundantly clear there's a religious element to their particularities and sensibilities. Now it should be noticed, though you can find them completely stark nude, it isn't typical or even often that you come across an altruist entirely bollock naked. However, there are enough of them for you to realise their distaste of clothes is quite comprehensive. Nonetheless, for our relationship with these mountain cultists to develop, we shall need to deliver unto them lost souls up to 4 times. Now there are slight dialogue variations upon delivery because you do not need to deliver every possible person to the altruists. However, I couldn't find any examples of who you choose to deliver being of massive importance.
This is weird. Where the hell are we?
Bear with me. I know just the place to take your mind off all this. Anything for the bride on her special day.
Oh God, what's my dad going to say?
I wouldn't go worrying about that.
I come bearing more gifts.
Good to us, fella.
So you keep saying.
Someone has been brought. It is a sign.
They just say generic feral cult stuff and disappear behind their wooden gates, paying us reliably for our troubles. Now, to take a moment away from that back and forth, there is yet another news article that crops up over the course of the main story that may be of some relevance to the altruists. For after completing the main story mission Hood Safari, another article titled "Another Hiker Goes Missing in the Hills" can be seen. It reads, "Police in Blaine County are scratching their heads again, and not just because of the reduced IQs so prevalent up there. Another hiker has disappeared without a trace while walking in the Chiliad Mountain State Wilderness." Blaine County Sheriff's Office spokesman Elmore Thicket told reporters, "We continue to confuse, and not just because we are dumb, but also because this would be baffling even to someone of average intelligence or above. Look at the facts. There are no facts. There is no body, there is no evidence, there is no crime, yet someone is missing, and so we have to act concerned even though we're not. No, don't write that. That's not what I meant. Police promised to keep looking for the hiker whose name was not released in case anyone found them before they did. And so it's apparent we're not satisfying the altruists' needs entirely. Should this hiker be missing as a result of this cult, which is the suggestion the game is making, then they are prolific in taking prisoners, and of course we know the reason why they never resurface again. And that is of course that these ravenous nudists are eating these poor people, and God knows how many lives they've taken.
Missing persons. Another hiker has disappeared without a trace, according to police. The unnamed 22-year-old man was walking alone from Polito Cove to Raton Canyon. They left home last Sunday and haven't been heard or seen since. Police don't have any leads, so are asking for increased pension benefits.
For the time being, all that's left to do is to see through a couple more acquisitions on behalf of these altruists.
I come bearing more gifts.
Good to us, fella.
So you keep saying.
Someone has been brought. It is a sign.
But it's upon our 4th delivery, whether that be 4 separate deliveries of one individual, 2 deliveries of 2 individuals, or any other combination, amounting to at the very least 4 individuals in total, that things get a tad more interesting.
Hey you! Buddy! Can you do us a massive favor? It's the little lady's birthday and we are really fucked up. Can you drive us back to our motel? Our car's right there.
Oh, you two will do nicely. Now I have a feeling I'm not going to regret these two.
What do you got? What do you got?
Just a couple more lonely hitchhikers for you to rehabilitate or whatever. But, you know, just give me the money, all right? I really don't give a shit.
Maybe you should, friend.
Come on. Whoa, what is this? Come on!
This time around, they don't pay us, but rather bring us into the camp at gunpoint. It's here where we can hear them chanting their mantra as they prepare for a ritual of some variety, though it's unclear what they need us for.
Altruism, the greatest good, for the greatest generation. We shall boom again.
He has come. Hello, Seeker.
Hello, Finder.
We kneel before you. We prostrate our continuing youth and vigor at this altar that has been sent to us.
Hello, Finder.
Prepare to be made pure.
Purity is everything. Pure flesh, pure blood, purity. Master, look!
Kill him and make him pure.
If we don't interrupt, the seeming leader of this cult will yell, "From this point on, every generation will be poorer than the last." However, unfortunately, they were shooting at me, so I kind of had to shoot back. I suppose we can add the use of firearms in their list of hypocrisies in their crusade against technology.
We will leave you!
As we fight our way through their hideout, their ramblings continue.
We won't die until the young are old themselves! We will boom again! You can't stop!
Only falling silent to the boom of Trevor's rifle. Upon defeating them all, we will be told, Altruist cleared, and we're free to finally explore their camp. Around the place we can find some briefcases inside which we can find and acquire a lot of money, so don't skip out on that. There are also quite a few barrels. I've got a feeling I'm going to be scraping my fair share of the bottom of these bad boys until GTA 6 launches, but most interestingly, the artwork and words found on some of the buildings. Most of it seems meaningless, perhaps even a bit crazy, with statements like "Give thanks, Son of God," and "Praise him, he who." Is this Zaffo that Cult Stoppers mentioned and we've heard nothing about since? Is the patron deity of the Altruists an alien, as suggested by this website? Well, might I direct you to one symbol in particular found all over the Altruist camp. There appears to be a lot of sun imagery, however, amongst it all we can find imagery that we've seen before. A symbol that repeatedly shows up over the Mount Chiliad mystery, a mystery that leads us to a series of alien-looking aircraft. And well, the Altruists really aren't situated far from Chiliad. The extent of their relation to that mystery is debated. As with the rest of the Chiliad mystery, nobody's even sure what the mystery truly is, if there even is one. And since I've already done an hour-long video on that topic, I don't feel any kind of urge to revisit the agonizingly extensive points of it when I don't really suspect it will alter the conclusion. But it certainly appears as though the Altruists are aware of the UFO phenomenon that occurs atop Mount Chiliad, and maybe they've interpreted this supposed alien as their god, this Zaffo, whoever Zaffo is. For it should be said there are apparently occasions where Altruists will mention this supposed deity by name, and the name is mentioned by other characters too.
Hey, what's up, homie? You alright?
No, away from me! We're good Zappo agents!
Although I must say I find it incredibly jarring that this cult that represents a satirical exaggeration of the generational gap ultimately worships an alien on top. Nonetheless, that appears to be the implication. Furthermore, the Altruist cult does appear to have taken some inspiration from the real-world Heaven's Gate cult, the followers of which apparently believed they could transform themselves into immortal extraterrestrial beings by rejecting their very human nature, and would ascend to a new body, the evolutionary level above human, upon their death. So I suppose you can only guess how that ended. As for the altruists in Grand Theft Auto 5, following the shootout, the media is quick to attribute their demise to a similar, if nonsensical, final chapter.
Cult news. The Altruists were a terrifying cult of isolated baby boomers who lived in the hills. Now it seems most are dead after a mass or ritualistic shooting that police are investigating. Marcela Gonzalez is on the scene.
It's carnage here in the woods. The group seem to have annihilated themselves, with many crowded around an area used for what appears to be ritual sacrifices. All seem to have been late middle-aged people who expressed dissatisfaction with modern life. They love guns and swinging, along with a ghoulish predilection for human flesh. Back to you, Steve.
So with this in mind, I think it would be negligent to completely dismiss the Chiliad mystery, or at least the idea of the altruists somehow being related to it. Also, I get a feeling if I miss this cave beneath their hideout, that's all the comment section will be filled with. It's a cave marked with similar words and similar artwork to that seen in the actual camp. There's a ram's skull. There's this iconic symbol that, of course, is awfully familiar, atop an unattended fire that never appears to extinguish. And then this is the message that jumped out to me. See the eye. Praise him. The symbol, of course, as I've already gone over, bearing some resemblance to those seen at Mount Chiliad, only a short distance away. And of course, those symbols reference that at 100% completion at the top of Mount Chiliad at 3 AM on a stormy night, you might sight a flying saucer. Incidentally, 3 AM is around the time that you can hear their Morse code transmission at the rebel radio station, which might explain who the altruists are attempting to contact. Not those at the radio station that's intercepting it, but rather this spaceship, or apparent spaceship, as it hovers above the mountain. And sure enough, on the rocks above their little enclave, they do indeed have a radio station of some capacity. It stands to reason then this is the origin point of that transmission, and its intent may very well be to parley with little green men. As for us, I'm not sure what this does, aside from direct our focus towards the summit of the mountain, but nonetheless it's a fascinating detail. So as much as they're a part of the elusive Chiliad mystery, I don't think they serve to answer any questions you might have regarding that, rather than perhaps being one of the many entry points to diving down that well and truly ridiculous rabbit hole. But beyond that, the altruists are also their own thing. They're a cult of older, aging men who hate the younger generations, believing they are slowly corrupting society. And this is a satirical take on how older generations at times can view younger generations. Not in the sense that they might overtly believe them to be corrupting society, but in the sense that with the times, naturally the way you go about things, your outlook on life itself, differs depending on the time you're a product of. And naturally the perspective of the younger generation is untested, unproven, varying wildly from the outlooks of those who came before. And so, the world changes in the blink of an eye as the power shifts from one generation to the next. And often, the select few of the older generations, possibly even more, wish to cling to their way of life, their societal norms, viewing the differing future in the hands of their children and perhaps even grandchildren with distrust. And so inevitably, there's a lot to get your head around. The altruists are a highly exaggerated parody of this factor of aging. In response to the world evolving, and moving onwards, correct direction or otherwise, whether they are ready for it or not, they resist and regress to a degree well beyond what can be taken seriously, to the point where they formed a cannibalistic UFO cult. Furthermore, they resist more modern technology. And while their being constitutes various hypocrisies here, technology is another facet of life that's constantly evolving. And typically there is a time where everyone begins resisting new tech. My grandmother, for instance, didn't know how to use a computer, and for the longest time she didn't even own a mobile phone. This is because by the time they rose in popularity, she was already in her 50s. She did eventually get a mobile phone, but it was an incredibly simple one, with the buttons and everything, long after smartphones had become very popular. And the point is, nothing was physically barring her from buying a phone and learning how to properly use it. She just thought it was too hard, the learning curve was too steep. Assimilating with this modern world was ultimately outside of her comfort zone, especially when she quite liked the world she grew up in. though she really enjoyed watching wrestling on telly. Now forgive me for the tangent about Manan, but on the front of tech, the Altruists are resistant in a similar fashion, albeit to a much, much higher extreme. As for the whole clothes point, no idea. But the point is, as far as the ever-unravelling tapestry of human history is concerned, the Altruists would rather go back than forwards. And being the GTA universe, not only are they a caricature, but younger generations typically are too. And so the sensibilities of those who comprise the altruist cult, for instance, may be more viciously rejected out of hand, and the end product is a hugely exaggerated generational gap. But that brings us to the end of today's deep dive into the altruist cult in Grand Theft Auto 5. I'd like to thank you all for watching and really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated, but of course, only do so if you want to. Be sure to pop me a follow on some social media if you use that stuff, and be sure to stop by the comment section and leave your thoughts and maybe even some suggestions for future topics you'd like to see me cover. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.